We're not online yet. Are we online?
Just in a second, but just about to, in a couple of seconds, we will.
All right, let me ask y'all a question. When I'm down here in Baltimore, I go visit my mom. She lives on 28th Street. I go visit my mom and all. But when I read the Wilmington paper, they always say like Wilmington has this high murder rate, and I didn't understand why that could be. Is something going? Is there like some drug war with Philly or something going on? I just didn't understand why there were so many murders in Wilmington for it to be, the size that it is.
Yeah. Well, to answer that question is I'm not sure whether those of us who live here in Delaware can really put our finger on it, but our state, Delaware, is almost a suburb of Philadelphia. So you have a lot of folks who just with that kind of mentality who comes into the state and get residency here and carry out their future act that continually go on. But I think law enforcement is trying their utmost to see how they can clamp down on what's happening right now. Omar, what do you think?
Okay, well, I'd just like to join everybody. Welcome to Showtime TV Zoom Facebook Live edition of episode with a conversation with men of color. This is episode 7, and I have 4 distinguished guests. Mr. Thomas Grand, Tony Garcia, Carl Shaw, and Fred Fitsgiles. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening, Omar.
Good evening.
Thank you for being a guest. Hey, Carl, you're sideways. You can turn your phone.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, but I guess to answer your question, we was talking, ladies and gentlemen, the pre-show, we was talking about the violence in the city of Wilmington, and I think with combination of many things, and some say it's gang wars, some say it's drugs, and I just think that we live in a culture of violence. It's not just in Wilmington, but it's everywhere. You got Wilmington, Philadelphia, Maryland, Chicago, Detroit. These people have a high number of crimes. I think it's just a culture that we live into. So maybe I can start off with that question about the violence that takes place in the hood. If anyone want to chime in, what's it going to take to reduce or end the violence? I mean, this has been going on, for maybe the last 2, 3, possibly 4 decades. I mean, I don't know. Fred, do you have any comments?
Well, as far as with violence, I just think that we're living in a violent era, and right. some of the things that you can say it's the parenting, you can say it's not opportunity, you can say people are poor. I just think that it's a time for us to be able to get back to people respecting themselves. Part of my program with leadership is not about leading others. It's about leading ourselves first and being accountable for ourselves. And so when we can learn to be able to find those who have those qualities, it's interesting. They have all the qualities, all the skills, but they just use them in a kind of a wrong way. And so if we can be able to identify those who have those skills to be able to, kind of turn the mindset and shift it, from being able to be violent to be able to being more creative and being more of a leader themselves, then they're going to turn that negative influence into a positive influence, and then that will replicate throughout the community, so that they can be able to now go from being able to have a mindset that snaps and does things that they'll kind of later regret, to be able to have something that they can be able to be proud of, as far as being able to be an example of, this is not how we're going to do this. Because it's all about change right now. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
And anyone else want to chime in?
I'm a criminal lawyer in Baltimore City. Been doing it for 20 years. 10 years I was a prosecutor, and 10 years I was a defense counsel, which is what I do now. So it kind of feels like, most murders are, not every murder, but like say 95% are sex, money, or drugs. It's usually one of those 3 things that's going on. Somebody owes somebody money, somebody slept with someone, and that caused a reaction from other people, or drugs being under the influence, or drugs as a currency. And so, like, to me, those are the 3 things. So, like, to me, I think that to reduce crime, it has to be twofold. One is that in our own minds, we glorify violence in movies and in television and in video games, so that we have sort of made it acceptable to that maybe to be acceptable. It's no longer something that even shocks us anymore. And so like you have to kind of train people that there are other ways to resolve problems, even if it is drugs. There are other ways to resolve your dispute in other different ways, whatever that might be. And then number two is, I think that you have to have the community, the police have to be kind of intertwined, and people have to feel comfortable with the police. Because what ends up happening is like people don't want to talk to the police at all. People feel like snitching will get you killed and this and that and this. So what happens is crimes get bigger because people want to retaliate on the street for something happened that but people don't trust the police at all. And so that, that's not like a vehicle where people feel like let's do that. You know what I mean? Let's work it out with the police. So because there's no trust in the police force, so you kind of got to have, I think you got to have police officers like walking around where the cop's name, like in the old days. I know that's like 1950s type stuff, but if you have police that not necessarily like just a uniform driving by your street with the lights on, or just driving by, or somebody walks up the street and actually talks to you and says, hey, whatever, you talk to the person and the cop's name, and he walks around, sort of leisurely during the day. So you got like this sort of like, you feel like you got a relationship or trust with at least one officer per se, you know what I mean? And then again, everybody feels like if there's a problem, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reach for a gun, because again, that's what we teach them in video and TV and movies. So to me, those are the kind of things that I see.
Right. Well,
And just to piggyback off of that, can you guys hear me clear?
yeah, you're good.
Okay, good. Yeah,
Absolutely,
just to piggyback off of that, when you said sex, money, and drugs, I just was like, wow, because there's actually a song that was in a movie, and that's the name of the song. That's actually the name of the song, and so music, I think also, in addition to movies, TV, and video games, the music industry has a direct correlation to the behaviors that we see in the community. So, but it's very complex, because you have music, you have all the things that you said, you have a lack of knowledge of self, no culture, parenting, single parent homes, inadequate education. So it's so complex that we have to kind of tackle this from a multi-dimensional standpoint.
Right. Before we go any further, let me just have you guys what I normally do at the beginning of the show is have you guys just briefly introduce yourselves and talk about your career, your educational background, and family background, just very quickly, so people know who all these stars that I'm interviewing. So let's go with Mr. Grant. If you give a background of who you are briefly, and then we'll go to the next person. Okay, you're on mute.
You got me now?
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot, Oman, for number one, inviting me to the program this evening. I'm Thomas Knight Grant. My country of birth is Liberia, West Africa, and my state of life is the state of Delaware. I'm also a member of the DACC, which is Delaware Africa Caribbean Coalition, and the premise of the coalition is to create a relationship between our state of life, which is Delaware, and our different African and Caribbean countries of birth. I have lived in the state of Delaware now for over 29 years and traveled back and forth into Liberia and look at different possibilities of businesses and community service up in Liberia. I'm an entrepreneur, the owner of several businesses here in Delaware. Starting with Grand Mortgage, doing a peak of the mortgage season, and then that branching out into GPN Solutions, where I create means for businesses to enable them to obtain commercial loans and also funds to keep their business running. In our community, we are very, very particular about how we groom our young people so that the future can be better for them, not just in the state of Delaware, but also in our different African and Caribbean countries that we originally from. Again, I'm a father of five of young people, and my wife and I right now, just us alone in a home. So we try to set examples for the young people in our community.
Great, great. All right, Tony.
I was born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware. Then I started being a lawyer down here in Maryland. I was unable to pass the Delaware bar, kind of kicked me in the behind. So I had to take the bar in Maryland, and I passed down there. So I started working in Maryland, and I was a state's attorney for 10 years. Then I started my own practice with another lawyer, and we joined up, and I've been doing criminal defense now in Baltimore City, and I do real estate at times. I've had some big cases. I worked with Alicia White. She was the African-American female officer in the Freddie Gray prosecution. We defended her. We've had some other high-profile cases. We had the guy that invented like Bitcoin and stole all the money, and then we represented him federally for like the guy that made Bitcoin. So we've done a few things there, but I'm born and raised in Wilmington. Went to Christ Our King Elementary, went to Tower Hill for high school, and grew up there, chasing after Omar.
And you got two daughters and a wife, right?
I got two daughters. My youngest daughter is a junior in high school, and my oldest daughter is a senior at college. She goes to College Park, Maryland.
Great, great. All right, Carl, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Carl Shaw, manager of community engagement at the Wilmington Library. Educated by trade, have a master's in education administration. Taught at Bancroft in the Christina School District for a while, and then actually started my own business doing workshops and supplemental education workshops for teachers and students and parents. From Jersey City, New Jersey, moved to Delaware in 1988. So I'm basically I claim both cities and states as home. 2 children. Never been married. We could talk about that, but like I said, very engaged in my children's lives, and really would like to see in the African American community evolution in how we treat evolution and how we teach each other evolution and how we more inclusive as opposed to selfishness, a more holistic look on success as opposed to the brother that said money and and everything that comes with that, and just a more community-based way of life for Wilmington and all cities. So we actually have these programs available that we do through the library. And that's one of the reasons why I joined the library system as opposed to traditional education, is because it provides a holistic and experiential learning opportunity as opposed to traditional education system that library system offering a holistic, all about. I think that's what's going to advance us, a holistic experiential learning opportunities.
Gotcha. All right, Fred.
All right. My name is Fred Fitsgiles. I'm born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware. My hospital was Wilmington General before they knocked it down. I was the last baby born and they knocked the hospital down. I don't know what that means, but I grew up from 39th Street, by way of 39th Street, and then I lived over in Dunleaf, and then came on back to Wilmington between 29th. So I'm definitely a Wilmingtonian by to the blood, and I love my city. My background is in corporate America as an IT consultant, also a multimedia producer. Is how I met Omar, filmmaker, speaker, coach, trainer, and business owner. Got beautiful wife, Iona, 5 children, and 3 grown and 2 more still home. And just so excited about, them being able to do that. Also a grandfather. I got 2 on the way and 2 that are already here. And my biggest thing right now, I have a media background, but over the last 3 years, I became a certified John Maxwell speaker, coach, and trainer because for the last 20 years, some of y'all might have remembered me from prepaid legal services and network marketing. And that was the first time I got introduced to personal growth, and still part of that company. It's now Legal Shield now. But I'm just, one of the things that was the biggest impact on me is me learning how to be able to work on myself and to lead myself first. And personal growth and development has been really, really big, self-improvement. And now I've embarked on a new journey to be able to be a speaker, coach, and trainer, focusing on personal growth, development, leadership development, young people. I do youth workshops, seminars online right now. Prior to COVID, being here, I was a proud 7-year mentor over at AI DuPont Middle with Connecting Generations. And I'm just so excited. I'm so focused on making the community better. You know what I mean? I grew up in the same Wilmington everybody else grew up in, and I had the same challenges. I had the same, things that was going on, but, I just feel very, very proud that I was focused. I had people in my life to help me make better choices so that I didn't get pulled into all the stuff that people are getting pulled in. I'm just letting them know I'm being encouraged that, you don't have to become a product of your environment. You can change your environment once you change yourself. That's what I'm focused on.
And Fred, just to your background, I know Carl mentioned sometimes people blame the rap music on some of the violence. You have a history in being a hip hop artist. How would you compare the hip hop music when you were growing up in hip hop compared to the hip hop music maybe the last 5-10 years or so?
That's a great question, Omar. And I used to think about that because I always would say to myself, why didn't I get involved with certain things? We had Straight Outta Compton. Okay, we had all those kind of records that would make you want to pick up a blunt, smoke weed, pick up a gun, blah 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 blah. But I didn't do that. A lot of people could have did that. I could have did that. And we had an album back in the day in 1990 called Project X, and I was the MC Hammer. Very proud. I was the MC Hammer of that album. I played my part. I did what I had to do, but I had all kind of people telling me that, I wasn't rapping hard enough or I was soft. No, I was just trying to be creative. But I also recognize that just because it's in the music, just because it's what they're saying, they're not really living that. And that has been a consistent because of the industry pushing that. The industry pushes that in order for you to make money, you got to say what you don't do. You got to act like you're from a place that you're not from. But here's the deal. You don't have to be able to do that. It's truly, truly talent. And the thing right now, I believe it's the same information that's out there, just a different voice, but it's the same choices that we have to make to not go do, just like a video game. You're not going to go, there was a video game back in the day on the old games, where you would pick up the gun and start killing everybody. Well, that doesn't mean go out and do that, but for some reason, the mental status and the pressure of life and the blueprint of the families, how they're bringing up their kids and the parenting, that I think it's just not just with the music. They try to become a microcosm of what's going on, and they're making the choices to be able to do that. So that's the same, but the difference is, what choice are you going to make? Are you going to let the music, are you going to try to become something that you're not, or are you going to use the music to be able to get out of that situation so that you can come back and make change that you need to make, as opposed to trying to become something and conform to something that you don't even live?
Right. I remember growing up, man, Public Enemy, and that was
man.
It's all self-love, power, love your sister, love your fellow brother, as well as the rest of the development. What do you guys think about groups like Public Enemy and Arrested Development? Do you think that they could survive in today's society with that powerful message? Anybody can chime in.
I think they could. I think they could. I think if it's done with a universal twist to it, you know, like if you could incorporate some of what the younger kids are doing now. I know they're still using like auto tunes and the types of flows that they use, the mumble rap, and you know, if you can incorporate some of those styles and some of those beats that the kids love, but infuse it with some knowledge of self and some positive information, it could. But I remember Jay-Z referencing something to that regard, saying that, you know, it's not lucrative. Like groups like Public Enemy and Arrested Development and Boogie Down Productions and Black Star, they only make it to a certain level. You know, like they never really reach superstardom. I guess the exception is Public Enemy, because I think they are a super group. But as far as like Mos Def and Black Star, Mos Def and Kweli, Black Star were some, you know, very groundbreaking artists, you know, with knowledge of self. Tribe Called Quest, you know, all these are, you know, amazing artists, but only got to a certain level. So if there's a way that you can infuse some of today's sound with some positive messages, I think it could work. But then you have the other factors, the corporate interests. Does positive music add on or benefit corporate interests? And a lot of these corporations are backing a lot of the major artists. And I mean, let's face it, there's evidence out there that the music business and a lot of entertainment entities are directly related to the prison industrial system. So you have some people who are actually benefiting from the violence. They're benefiting from the crime. They're benefiting from the dysfunction. You know, so if that sells, if that generates finances, then what's the point of, you know, putting out music that's going to counteract that? So there's a lot of aspects. It's not just about the music. It's also about, you know, societal norms and the corporate interests that's backing some of these major artists. I mean, let's face it. There's a lot of people who we've listened to songs that we know aren't good, you know, but they play it so much over and over and over and over, we start to like it because of oversaturation of that music. So, I mean, this is not because the music's good, it's they have a corporate backing. So if there's a corporation out there who has the funds to back positive music, I think that'll be, you know, beneficial to the artists, you know, and it'll be a motivator to the artists to make more positive music.
Right.
Yeah, I also think that Public Enemy would have made it into this world because more of the music is that the message that is being put out there, and the young people listen to the message in the music, they can come up to be much better. I mean, in today's world, you find that young people who really want to move ahead, they will gravitate to the music that they listen to from us. While we used to play, and then they go out and act some of those things. So Public Enemy, a group such as Public Enemy, they have a very good positive impact. They may not have plateau as others may have wanted them to be. However, their success is great to what they were and what they are.
And Public Enemy is to me back then, the beats is what really brought Public Enemy out. I remember when it first hearing jigga 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 jigga. Yes, it was like the Rhythm the Rebel. That was the first time I heard Public Enemy, and it was like I heard the beats first, then the lyrics. So I think that for people like Public Enemy and KRS-One and people like that, they weren't necessarily looking as a hip hop artist. You're not looking for fame because they were about their craft and being the best that they can be. So that fame, as far as a money thing, that was a business move. It wasn't a culture move to me. A culture move means that we're going to go to the next level as far as my lyrical delivery, as far as my impact, as far as the way I do these things. But that once that business started kicking in, and they started pretty much using every artist like a wash rag, meaning you basically would just kind of like, here's what I want you to do. They soak them up, they juice them up, they squeeze them out, and then if they can't do anything else, and they're not making more money, they get rid of them, and their message goes out of the door. So Public Enemy, they wouldn't allow anybody to make. Chuck's not going to allow nobody to use him and to stop his message. That's why he even got into motivational speaking. Matter of fact, Public Enemies, matter of fact, have that I heard that they actually had a new album out. So they are still relevant. The message is still relevant. It's just that it's not about the fame and the money. And success is not the money, because you can see, you know, for these young kids, it's like I listen to my daughter. My daughter said, I want to be famous. And I had to explain to her what being famous meant. You know, being famous means you put yourself in a situation where on the way up, they're going to push you and they're going to drag you right on down. They're going to drag you into the ground. So that's not what you want. You don't want fame. You want to be able to be at a point where you're have a artist that has impact on generations of people, that can transform the minds of people. And I think Public Enemy had that type of effect. It was a transformational kind of group that made you think one thing. I mean, Elvis was the hero the most. I grew up thinking Elvis was pretty cool, but then when I heard Public Enemy, I got educated, and that kind of impact stayed with me even to today.
All right, Tony, you got to chime in?
I feel the same way. I think musicians that do, trying to make you culturally aware or to educate you, always have a place in music. It's just, just have to be something that you want to hear. And like you said, that music, I remember that song where it sounded like that little like static in your radio for Public Enemy. And I remember hearing it in my car and I was like, wait a minute, the song's on the radio station. And I kept trying to turn the knob. I didn't realize I was a part of the song. You know what I mean? Like, but I think there's definitely a place for it. I think that, music is a tough business because, like you said, you got to have a corporate backing and a marketing campaign to sort of make money for you. And at the same time, you are also torn between what you said, between what Fred said about, having this feeling of personal worth and wanting to honor your craft. And so like Carl mentioned before about what is the definition of success? You know what I mean? And what does that mean? And, I think it means different things to different people. And I think that, I always think of success as that, I think a success life is when you're doing what you really want to do, and you're not a slave to what somebody else wants you to do. You're doing what you want to do, whatever that might be. You know what I mean? That you're doing what you want to do, what fulfills you. You know what I mean? To me, makes you a success or not a success. You know what I mean? I see a lot of people, ask me why I'm a lawyer. I say, because I like telling stories. I'm always a storytelling kind of dude. And so like, I enjoy telling stories in front of a jury and I have fun at it. You know what I mean? But, if I was a different type of lawyer that was sitting in a little cubicle and doing paperwork all the time, I would hate my life and I wouldn't feel that way. But I agree it's not measured by money. Unfortunately, like musicians, in order to break the ceiling and go like Jay-Z, you got to cross over and be really outside of your community and kind of have this universal appeal. And that's tough because we grow up in a locality, a certain location, and we have an experience in time and space between what ugly things are in our life, what things that we see and what we feel, and we want to express our rage or gratitude or love for something that is a part of our life. So like whenever you see like a crossover person, it always kind of feels watered down or corporate or something that they've taken the edge off, they've shinied it up so that people, in France and people in, Guam or South America, as well as people in Botswana can listen to the same song. And like, I don't know if musicians, when they originally make a song, intend for it to be that way. You know what I mean? But I think corporate America kind of shines it up so they can sell maximum sales. So I agree with everything that was said. You know what I mean? And I thought it was interesting when you mentioned about your daughter being famous, Fred. You know what I mean? I always try to tell my kids that you can't measure your success by the opinions of others. You can't say I'm a success because most people like me or most people think I'm this or most people think I'm that, because that doesn't fulfill you in the end. It's got to fulfill you internally, spiritually and mentally for you to be successful.
One of the things about Public Enemy is that they gave high praises to leaders like Malcolm X and the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And Malcolm and Marcus Garvey always taught us to love, ourselves, love our history, love our culture, love Africa. Mr. Grant, I want to ask you, you're from Liberia, and you're here in America now. And one of the things that I've always heard people say was those blacks and Africans, they don't like us blacks here in America. So this your experience with being an African from Liberia moving to America. What do you think about the relationship between Africans and African Americans here in the United States of America?
Well, the first thing is that's basically is more of a myth, and is a sense of what I hate to say that way, what the Caucasian put out there for the matter of the divisions to divide the African from black people in the United States. If I give you my story in Liberia, you were like, wow, where did this guy come from? I mean, I left Liberia in 1984. And before coming to the United States, one of the very first independent insurance sales agent for International Trust Corporation. And at the age of 26 in Liberia, I built my first 4-bedroom house, concrete house in Liberia, and owned my first 3 cars in Liberia. And I made my first $150,000 in Liberia, even though Liberia up to today's date is still using the U.S. Currency. So that's just basically what it is. And in Liberia, we are English speaking country. I just came back from Liberia about 2 weeks ago, and I was there for about 6 weeks. And as I said, it's my country of birth, but my body left there, but my mind continued to be there because I have family and friends there, and try to bridge that gap and bring that understanding that, hey, look, we are all but the same people. We may be in the United States now that have much more convenience. However, there is room for convenience to be taken into many parts of Africa. And Liberia being the first independent African country, Liberia had made so much history in the world. Liberia is also the first African country to have both a female president and a female vice president in the country, regardless of all the challenges that there is. And many things about Liberia is very much similar to that of the United States. You have the state of Maryland here, and you have a county in Liberia that is called Maryland, and a county in Liberia called Maryland that was formed by the citizens and the people of the state of Maryland in the United States. And Liberia is also a country where you have the very first African American president is from Liberia. His name was Joseph Jenkins Roberts out of Virginia. That became president in Liberia. So that just basically is individual, where one want to feel a little more superior to the other person.
And your organization, the Delaware African Caribbean Coalition, it promotes unity among us all. Right?
Yeah, we sure do. We sure do. We do that, and not just that. We also bridge the gap between our brothers and sisters here and those brothers and sisters who are in the different African countries. Some of the things that we have done in the country of the Gambia right now, where we have created, we created where the A.I. DuPont Hospital is carrying out some medical work in the country of the Gambia. To the first leader of the country of the Gambia. We are the one who were able to have the very first in the history of the state of Delaware and the country of Liberia to have a state dinner with the former vice president of Liberia and the dignitaries here in Delaware. One of the things that I've also currently doing in Liberia, I also have an IT company in Liberia trying to transition the country from anti-law system to the VoIP system in the country. Another thing that I'm working on right now for Liberia to see how we can create a financial means for those of us who are in the United States and own real property in the United States. How can we use the equity from our property here in the United States and then build businesses or what have you in countries such as Liberia. Granted, Africa as a whole is the third leg of the world economy. Africa has a very young population. Africa also have the most cheapest labor that you can find. It's not in China, it's in Africa. But we have to create that means where we can go and not just give people a handout, but give them a hand up.
Right, exactly. You know, Carl, before this COVID-19 pandemic, Wilmington Library, you guys actually had, I believe, it might be your first Kwanzaa celebration. Kwanzaa organization is a holiday to African Americans, and Africans celebrate 7 principles of Kwanzaa: unity, self-love, self-determination. And you have guys like the brother from Roots, like I can't think of his name. He came and spoke. LeVar Burton, you had people like him. So at the Wilmington Library, you guys are really promoting and teaching African Americans history and African Americans doing positive things.
Right. I mean, let's take a look at the population of Wilmington. You know, it's about, I mean, I don't know the numbers exactly, but I know it's higher than what, 65%? African American, probably close to 85%. So, and we see the need for inspiration. You know, like I always call the libraries the great equalizer. You know, basically, this is the one place that you can get information, access to technology, programs, access to community leaders, access to national influencers at no cost whatsoever. So anybody who wants to learn, anybody who wants to take their next step, like I said earlier, anybody who wants knowledge yourself, anybody who wants to learn about other countries, Africa, where you came from, hear stories of success through the eyes of people you saw on TV. You heard their music. We have Rakim coming in next month. So you heard their music. You saw them on TV. You've read their books. Now meet them, talk to them, experience it's something different when you're watching someone on TV and when you're right in front of them. You actually get more than the information. You actually get their spirit. You get their energy. You get their aura. And that alone could inspire somebody. So when the new director came on, he saw that. I mean, he saw that, you know, this was an environment that could really benefit. I mean, Wilmington was already moving in a different direction when it comes to, you know, when I first started with the library, they always hashtagged world-class city. When in Wilmington post something on social media, or Downtown Visions post something on social media, or anything having to do with Wilmington, it was all about world-class city. And with world-class cities, you need world-class individuals. You need world-class communities. So we knew that the library had to step up to world-class programs and world-class resources. So being that we are one of the keys to the community as far as education, as far as access to resources, our vision for this library fell right in line with what the city needed. So you're just kind of seeing the materialization of that vision married with what the community needs. Well, I appreciate you pointing that out. Much appreciated.
Right, and you guys have, I think I saw Terry McMillan. Is she supposed to be virtue speaking?
Terry McMillan was last week.
Oh,
you know,
Right.
Terry McMillan. I mean, and she, oh my God, when you talk about an engaging and inspiring personality, I mean, it was a virtual program, and I mean, she had everybody like glued to that screen. And not only was it a great opportunity to fellowship with her virtually, we actually partnered with Milk and Honey, the new African-American owned coffee shop on Lower Market, and that's actually where the viewing party was held. So we had a viewing party, everything was CDC compliant and, you know, socially distanced. The food was, you know, distributed individually by two main representatives. And, you know, and we had to cap off the attendance at 20, you know, but it just made for a community. We still had a chance to fellowship. And, you know, the one camera was pointed at the crowd and one camera was pointed at Terry, you know, so we actually got a chance to interact.
All right, okay, that's great, that's great. And, you know, speaking of self, right before the show, I was listening to a speech that Malcolm X did in 1962 when he said, who taught us to hate the texture of our hair? Who taught us to hate the color of our skin? Who taught us to hate the shape of our noses and our lips? And it kind of reminded me of colorism a little bit, colorism among the African-American community. So I want to ask you, gentlemen, as men, because I heard females talking about this subject a lot, but as men, how far have we come when it comes to colorism? Do you think that bleaching our skin is still an issue? Do you think that glorifying Eurocentric beauty, that light skin, that long hair is still promoted in our communities? And I definitely want to hear from you, Mr. Grant, because I wanted to know in Liberia, is there an issue of colorism whereas people may not love their dark skin and they try to bleach their skin? So anyone who wants to start off with that they can, and others can chime in. Is it too touchy? All right, let's go with Mr. Grant. So
Well, to tell you, for some godly and earthly reason, people around the world who have light skin seem to be more favorable in the eyes of others, and I think it goes way back to history because of the pigment of our skin, and anything that was kind of dark seemed to represent not of a good flavor. So and that had transcended in all society where it is. Even Liberia, that is an African country. For those who are much lighter, were more favorable, or in the eyes of others, were saying to be more favorable, or to be the blessed one, or to be the one who will have greater success. So that's something that is very universal until we begin to change that within ourselves, by saying, look, Black is beautiful. So now we begin to change the narrative reference to that, not based on the pigment of your skin, but the intelligence of who the person, who you are.
I do want to say that it's interesting you brought that up, because I think that a lot of people, that it kind of comes to the history of what Black people have been looked upon as, to try to compare themselves even in their own community. It's like light is brighter, light skin and things of that nature. Colorism is something, to me, was foreign when I was younger, but I started seeing a lot more of it. And that, I think it goes back, and me being in a personal growth, it goes back to that self-love, or lack of self-love, or even with the Instagram community right now, it seems like everything that's posted, it seems to be a little bit lighter is better, but that's not the case. That the biggest enemy that we have is the inner me. That's the thing that we have to focus on, is that inside thing. It's because a lot of people can't really look themselves in the mirror. If you really ask people, one thing I used to do with my kids when they were younger, I mean, young, look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, I love yourself. Tell yourself, I love you. I love myself. I love my skin. I love my eyes. And that, to me, it seems weird to do that with kids today, because they were like, Dad, what are you doing? But that's so important, because that stays ingrained. But unfortunately, back in in our history, I've heard different family members tell me horror stories about this, I don't like this person because of his skin color, or the opportunities are not the same. No, it's about who you are inside. Just like Brother Grant was talking about, it's your character. It's not the color, because I've seen people who are very, very light, they get fired too. Very, very dark, they have the same issues. We all can't, it's really not like Dr. Martin Luther King said, it's not the color of our skin. It's not it. You may think it's better opportunities. I mean, yeah, if you're talking about, white people and Black people and the racism things going on, yeah, we have that challenge and things of that nature. We still got to fight through that. But there's a lot of times where people look at you and they perceive you are until you open your mouth. The minute you open your mouth, you can change somebody's thought process about you within 3 to 5 seconds. And that's the power. If you continue to be able to work on who you are and like you said, get the education, stop being around the people that are, if you see somebody pointing somebody out because of whether they're kids or whether they're grown, oh, that's the light skinned pearl, that's the Black. Point that out. Hold our friends and family accountable to saying, you got to stop being able to look at, because that person right there, they ain't no better than me. You know why? Because nobody has my fingerprint. Nobody can unlock my phone. I'm the only person that can unlock my phone because my fingerprint is unique to me. So colorism as a whole, yes, it's an issue because what people see, but I think it can be also resolved when people start to recognize their own value and their own worth. If you look at somebody as they are, they become worse than they are. But if you look at somebody as they could be, then they become what they should be. It has nothing to do with your color. It's just who you are as a person. I think that can be able to help as well.
Right. In a couple of weeks, we have the presidential race. Ice Cube, hip hop artist and actor, has made big news because he has a platform that he wants to present to whoever wins the president in terms of creating a Black agenda. What do you gentlemen think about Ice Cube plan of presenting a Black agenda? Do we need one? Is it imperative? Or will it make a difference among African Americans? Let's start off with Tony.
Yes, I think that there should be a Black agenda. I think that there's nothing wrong with that. From my personal experience, I'm 50 and I've seen like lots of presidential debates over the years. And I have rarely ever seen a presidential debate where the politicians did not step over each other to see who was more pro-Israel. No, I'm more pro-Israel. No, I'm more pro-Israel. I'm more pro-Israel. But you never heard one of them say, hey, I'm more pro-Africa. I'm more pro-Africa. I've never heard that at all. And so, no, I think that there's nothing wrong with that. I think that I remember when the person posed that question to Biden and they said, I'm Black, why should I vote for you? And Biden was like, well, who else you want to vote for? Trump? And I got what he was saying too. But yes, there is an element of African Americans need their own agenda. I think when I read books and listen to speeches from Malcolm X or the Black Panther Party, although they're from the 60s, I often got from them that they often felt that African Americans should be their own party, and that in the event of a Republican or a Democrat, that the African American people, if they were sort of had an agenda, they could tip the balance one way or another, and that they shouldn't join either party, but instead see which party offered them the best deal, the best agenda, the best way to help their community, instead of sort of being married to the Democrats, or I guess prior to Lincoln being married, originally being married to the Republicans, but they didn't want you to marry to any party. They wanted the African Americans to have an agenda. This is what we want. This is what we need. Which party's going to give it to us, and which party's going to make more? I'll end where I began. I've never seen a candidate get up on the stage for Senate, City Council, or President of the United States and say, hey, I'm more pro-Black. No, I'm more pro-Black. Instead, you will hear a whole entire segment about who is the most pro-Israel. And so Black people shouldn't be bothered, or I don't think should be inhibited or ashamed to say we have unique issues and we would like you to address it and offer us something to make those issues better.
I thought the same thing when I actually, me being a hip hop artist back in the day, when I saw that Ice Cube did that, the first thing I was thinking of, because I'm voting for Biden, and so I was like, what's Ice Cube doing? So it made me more interested, and so I wanted to see what his position was, and then I heard him correct the Como guy. He was talking about what it was, and I saw it differently. It's like, at first perception, when you first hearing somebody doing something, you react like everybody else. You react like social media. You say, "What's going on?" But when you have an objective mindset, you want to hear the other side. You want to hear what's going on. So when he corrected him and said, "Listen, I'm not going here. I'm not going there. I'm not saying this. I'm not going for Trump specifically. I just want to know what they're going to do for Black people." And when he made that statement, I said, okay, that's kind of the same as somebody running and saying, I'm going to do this for Mexicans. I'm going to do this for, this particular group or that group. I'm going to make sure but it's never Black people historically, just like Brother Garcia was saying, it's never been where you put it out there, I'm going to do this for Black people. It's like, okay, what do we have to do to get the Black vote? And then once we get the Black vote, when we got it, and then we're done. Then there's no follow-up. I think that's what he was talking about. It's like, no matter who's elected, he wants to know what's being done for Black America. So, you know, I respect him for being able to actually go out there, because I knew he knew he was going to get heat doing that. But when I heard the purpose of it, and I was watching Roland Martin the other day, actually yesterday, as a matter of fact, and Roland had him on the show talking again, challenging him a little bit, which was fair. But at the same time, Roland tried to put him together with people who are already doing this, who's been doing this for Black folks for years, and try to make that connection. That way, you know, we work together as a team, as opposed to somebody trying to push, here's my plan, here's my plan, here's my plan. As Black people, we need to come together and say, okay, what can we do? What can we do together to combine? I mean, it's an old cartoon, Voltron. You got the arm, I got the leg, I got the head. We got to be able to do that. So I think that, you know, by him doing that and just making the point of, yeah, right now he's doing it, I believe, because he knows it's sensitive. We're 2 weeks away from the election. So he's going to be heard right now. He's going to be heard right now, as opposed to, you know, afterwards. So, you know, I think that's just important to who, you know, what happens, and to bring the awareness. It's all about awareness. What are you going to do for Black people, as far as what's your plan? And here's my plan. I heard his contract during the summer. I heard about the Black contract. I didn't know exactly what it was, but then I got a little bit more deeper. I said, okay, I see what he's doing. He's doing it specifically for Black people. So, and I definitely respect him being able to do that, and having the courage and be able to kind of put it out there, because yes, there's got to be, it can't be ignored. It can't be just like in high school, an elective. Black people are not an elective. It's not like lunch or recess. We got to be as important as English was in high school, we got to be the English for this whole country to be able to be focused on. So if you don't pass English, you ain't passing. So if you don't help Black people, guess what? You ain't passing either. That's how I look at it.
All right. Mr. Grant, you want to chime in?
Well, I think the issue about a Black agenda is that these things come up most every 2-4 years when there's some election going on and what have you. Well, you know, we as Black people, we have a very strong economic power that we have not yet use it to our advantage. We have the numbers, and when we begin to spend within our neighborhood, we begin to support our own Black businesses. Well, then that agenda for Black people as a whole will begin to supersede whatever any politician want to do. And what I find many times, we don't go to the table negotiating from the issue of strength. We go and negotiate on what can you give me. Well, in this time of our lives, we don't want what you can give me. It is a give and take. I can give you this, and then in return, I get that back from you. That's some of the things that caused the entire continent of Africa to be backwards today, because people go in there and say, "Hey, look, I can come and dig what we call a hand pump." Well, why give me a hand pump where everybody is coming to this one pump to draw water, when you can run the lines in every house and I can turn on the faucet in my home? So we should not just settle for mediocre. We should settle for the best, because we are the best. If you look at it, we really, as Black people, we actually finance the entire world, or the modern world, for its growth that it has today. So let's get out there. I applaud all what they are doing, but by the same token too, let's begin to open more Black credit union, more Black banks. It's our money. We can decide what interest rate we're going to give our people to make it very much possible for them to have that equilibrium.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about one issue that's been plagued in the African American community for a long time, is mass incarceration. And Tony, I want to address it to you first, because you're a lawyer. So I mean, man, here in Delaware, just about every state, the prisons are overcrowded with African Americans. Some are calling for a prison reform system. So some are asking that nonviolent offenders be released. Some say that the criminal justice system is systematically racist towards African Americans in this country. So as a lawyer, and I'm gonna start off with Tony, if the other two gentlemen want to chime in, what's your issue in regards to mass incarceration? How can we reduce the amount of African Americans in prison? What needs to change? What needs to happen? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, there are more African Americans in jail because the police focus their enforcement and their vigilance on the African American community. So if you're always looking in that community, and people commit crimes in all communities of every race, but they're not. The police are not patrolling poor white areas or poor Hispanic areas like they are the poor Black areas. And so Black people are obviously getting arrested more often. And then what ends up happening is, like, in urban environments, you have, whenever there's a Black part of town, there's always the stigma of, well, that's the bad part of town. That's the part of area where the persons that are wealthy are saying, we want the police to focus their attention there so that the city is allegedly safer and that sort of thing. So there's definitely the police, I'm using the word twice, but the police sort of focus their enforcement on the African American community. So, like, no matter where you go, there's always more African Americans in jail, even though they sell drugs at the same rate as whites, and they do commit domestic violence at the same rate as whites. All those things take place. So in order to reduce it, there's no easy answer to that. I used to debate with my father, and I used to say,
I think reception went down a little bit.
In the police force, and therefore it's our children, it's our brothers, it's our cousins that are in those uniforms, instead of a stranger who lives in the suburbs or doesn't really reflect the community. And I don't know the answer to that question, but I think that there is systematic racism. There's no doubt about it. There are, you can go in front of a judge for the exact same crime, and African American get more time. African Americans don't get the best representation because maybe they don't have the wealth and resources to afford the better lawyers, so they don't get that as well. And so you have a whole thing. I mean, like, it's a lot. I think a better education would have less mass incarceration. You have to take away the profit model of the corporate profit prison model, where they have prisons in which they're making a profit off of the prisoners. And so, like, what happens is, so they have to have a certain number of people in those prisons, so that they are, that one, they can justify the structure and the cost is doing to the state or whatever to build the place, but they're making a profit on it. So I think that's wrong. I don't think you should have a profit margin prison any more than I think that the fire department should make a profit either, based on whose houses they're going to put out. So I don't think a prison should be for profit. So to me, that's a bad message, and it feeds into the thought that you're just funneling people in there to make money for someone else, and that's not what prison is supposed to be for. Prison is only supposed to be for the persons that cannot be controlled violently. They can't control their violence. That'll be the only type of person that really should be in prison. And also, there's a mass incarceration by the length of time that you're in prison. So, like, you're not the same person at age 17 as you are at age 50. You're not the same person. So you give this 17-year-old kid 30 years or 40 years or something. You know what I mean? And so for a particular crime, not that a murder or a robbery doesn't justify a lot of time, but they're not the same person. I think people need to revisit the whole theory of how we sentence people, because I think that people aren't the same person. So you got somebody in there to say 45, and he raped somebody when he was 17. Was the crime heinous? Absolutely. Was the crime deserve punishment? Absolutely. But he's 45 now. He's not, there's no semblance of that same guy still there. You know what I mean? So wow, that question is much bigger than Tony Garcia. But I think that again, prisons for profit is terrible. I think there is systematic racism. Absolutely. I think that persons who are and it's sexist too. Listen, if a guy slaps his wife and goes into court, he's going to get a sentence that a woman who slaps her husband will not get. Period. And that's a fact. They're not going to do it. And so if a guy calls the police and says, "Hey, my wife just hit me over here with a bat or slapped me," the police aren't going to come. And if they do, they will mock him. You know what I mean? So they take away a male's ability to use the police as an interceding for violence against him. But if a guy hits a woman, if he throws something at her, the police come, no questions asked, and they're locking this guy up. They're taking him away. So I don't have an answer to how you fix it, but I think that there's all sorts of wrongs in the criminal justice system. It needs to be torn to the studs, and they need to rebuild it from the ground up. The way they sentence, what you're sentenced for, whether there's going to be some sort of community sentencing, whether there's going to be more education. What if you sentence someone to get their doctorate degree? What if you sentence someone to get, an education in a particular field? You would change that person's life. You would change that human being's life. And so what is the goal of the prison system? You know what I mean? So again, I really wish I had an answer for you, Omar. I don't have one. It's like one of those kind of things where so much is wrong, and there's so many things that are so wrong that are kind of in my face that it's difficult for me to see what's right and what is, how to fix it all. It's almost like, I guess it's like the alphabet. You just got to take it, like a friend of mine would say, you eat a whale. How do you eat a whale? One bite at a time. You know what I mean? And so that's the only thing that I can say. And so the first thing you got to have is police that are tied to the community, that are a part of the community. You got to have a judge that is a part of the community. You got to have, again, rethink how you sentence people. These long sentences to me are counterproductive. But at the same time, somebody's been hurt or somebody's been killed. I get it. But I just think that, you have that mass incarceration, people in there for a long time. And then, you get a job, you come out, you can't get a job. They put you in prison and you come on out, and then you're really prevented from, it used to be prevented from voting, but you're also prevented from getting a job or, going to school or, let's suppose you have a handgun. You get convicted of a handgun. Okay, well, you can't go to law school. You can't go to medical school. You probably can't get your electrician's license. You probably can't get your plumbing license. You can't be an accountant. All these doors close because you made a decision in a 1 second to or a short time period. You made a bad decision, and a whole lifetime of careers are closed to you. And I don't see why possession of a gun or you had you had a felony narcotic conviction. Why can't you go to medical school? Why can't you come on out, apply to medical school? Why is that? Why are you barred? Why can't you take a license to be a doctor? And so you're almost like banished from a lot of the more positive, lucrative, or even the careers that pay more, just because you made a decision. And a lot of times people make that decision when they're young, and therefore they are boxed in from the door. One of the ways that I can tell that a young man is going to have a hard time is very simple. When I do an interview with people, when they say they got their GED, when they say they got their GED, I already know that, man, they're in for a hard time. They have a hard time getting jobs. They probably have a long career tied in with criminal events and things, a history of things, because they got this GED instead of their high school diploma, and they stop. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with a GED. I'm not saying it's wrong, but when I see somebody with a GED, those are mostly the people that I see that have, 8, 10, 9 convictions or a bunch of these convictions. So like, I always think, and I might be wrong, that if I could go in and change that portion of it, their education, their value system at that point, and not punish them forever, then I think that would be a help to mass incarceration. And I know that doesn't answer the question, but that's the best I got.
Right, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, it was informative and educational, to say the least. You mentioned, Tony, you mentioned the Black Panther Party earlier. In today's society, we have Black Lives Matter. That they've been active, protesting, demonstrating on a regular basis. They had the George Floyd case, Breonna Taylor case. So I want to ask you, John, I want to start off with Mr. Grant, then Fred, then Tony. What is your take on the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, I think they have done a pretty good job in bringing awareness to a lot of things that generally we as Black people go through when it comes to law enforcement and the way how we are treated. And one of the things that I know that we have done to help in our community to try to steer people away from the issue of mass incarceration and then going to jail and being much more involved is something that we call bridging the gap between law enforcement and the community. Whereby you can have, and those are some of the things even with such organization as Black Lives Matter that need to do. It's not just a matter of just protesting, but then get law enforcement to come and sit down with them and get to understand what is some of the things that they do go through. Yes, we know that when they get out there, that they themselves they're afraid for their lives. But by the same token, too, hope stay alive. It wants to stay alive if they can keep breathing. The first thing that with law enforcement go for is to shoot or kill. I'm not saying a case whereby they are going to stop that person, but they intend to actually eliminate the person from the face of the earth. So the Black Lives Matter, what some of the things that need to continue to do in a sense of protesting is the matter of creating some educational means where we can get to know much more of how to conduct ourselves out there in the general public.
Right. Fred?
Yeah, it really, for me, it represents accountability. It represents self-discipline. And it represents an opportunity to bring everybody to the table, to be able to educate each other. Because I think that that's the biggest thing. It's like we have this moment and we're protesting and we're doing everything that we need to do because we need to bring awareness. And that's what's going to bring people to the table. If we don't do that, not only we're not exercising our right, but then we're going based on assumptions that we're right and they're wrong, or they're wrong and we're right. We know right is right and we know when wrong is wrong. So I just think that it's a great opportunity to bring that connection. So instead of us just talking about it, it's actually being able to sit at the table and listen to each other, hear each other out, and then actually have a plan to do something when you leave the table, when the lights go off. Because a lot of the times that you see moments and they come and they go is because as long as the cameras is on is one thing, but when the cameras is off, it's over. It's never going to be over. It hasn't been over for 50 years, but the conversation has always been cut because it's like, okay, action, cut. And then it's like a movie. So I think that it really brings awareness that we're going to hold you accountable. At the same time, more importantly, we're going to hold ourselves accountable, because that's where it's at. We can't expect one set of people to do one thing and we do the totally opposite. We also can't not be accountable for our own selves, our own behaviors, our own actions, right? And then hold somebody else accountable. So it brings both parties to the table so that we can be able to hold each other accountable, just like anything else in life. Accountability is the key. It's integrity. And it also brings to the point where we challenge the character of those who are bad people doing bad things.
I took a while to me to really understand Black Lives Matter. Really, I started in one place and then I went to another. I'm glad that that they march so regularly and that they bring awareness to incidents. There's an electricity that they bring to events and occasions that I don't even. So one time I asked my dad and said, "Is the NAACP still open? Are they closed? Or did they go out? Did they go bankrupt one day and I didn't read about it in the paper?" You know what I mean? It's not that they don't do anything, and it's not that they don't do good things. And I don't mean to diminish the NAACP. I just don't see it in the media what they're doing. So they might be doing a lot. So I don't want to see it that way. But the media doesn't. And I don't even hear people even ask their opinion about things. So I like the electricity and the enthusiasm that is generated. And what I don't want to see is people start tearing it down. Well, they didn't do this, or they don't accomplish that, or it's watered down now. I think that when you have a train moving, keep the train moving. If you make another organization that does something a little different, that's great. If you go into Black Lives Matter, as long as I just want them to keep the train moving, keep the accountability going, and keep it going. It can't end with, "Oh God, we got Trump out of office." You know what I mean? And like he said, when the camera's off, people stop talking about it. But I think that the electricity I love, and I just hope that they don't start tearing it down. Because I hear a lot of social media, young people talking about, well, they don't do this or they don't do that, and they don't do this and that, but nobody's suggesting, well, okay, well, why don't you make another organization that does what you like? Or why don't you go out and do the things that you think Black Lives Matter should be doing? Participate and go into, instead of just judging what Black Lives Matter is or what it isn't. So I like what it does. I don't agree with everything they do, but I like with the electricity that they bring. I love the accountability that they bring. And I just hope that that it doesn't fade away if Trump loses.
All right, I'm going to ask you three gentlemen the same question that I asked the other gentlemen in the other episodes. All three of you, top of the program, mentioned that's your fathers. I want to stay with you, Tony. I want to start off with Tony, then Fred, then Mr. Grant. What is the joy of being a father for you?
To me, the joy of being a father is the ability to mold, influence, and guide your children. You have an opportunity to on the funny side, your mama didn't let you eat ice cream late at night, so you get to let your kids eat ice cream at night because your mama didn't let you do it. But there's this element of watching someone grow, watching them, teaching them how to learn from their mistakes. I remember that, I read that pain is always the best teacher. And it's always how to grow from it. I have two daughters. And so I wanted my daughters to, the basics, obviously, to be very educated and confident in themselves. But I wanted to know how to deal with breakups. I would always hear about, a woman that broke up with a guy and they cut their clothes up, or they keyed their car, or the things like that. And I always said that, I always wanted to be there when my children felt heartbreak, because when they felt heartbreak, when they failed, is when, to me, fatherhood is so important, because it's how you teach them to get back up. Because you teach your kids so many things, but the most important thing you teach them is how to make good decisions. Because no matter what you teach them, there's going to be a time when you're no longer here. There's going to be a time when they can't call you and ask. There's going to be moments where they're facing a police officer or an emergency, and they have to make a decision without you. And so that's where you see the benefit of fatherhood. When you teach your children how to make good decisions when you are not there, or when they're not being watched, how to have honor when you're not on camera. You know what I mean? When somebody's not watching you, to still have honor, how to deal with failure. Your children aren't going to get everything they want in life. They're going to get denied jobs. They're going to have a jerk boss. They're going to get fired. They're going to be sexually harassed. They're going to be, some cop is going to say something, or a person is going to say a racial slur to them, or they're going to get downsized, or whatever it might be. And so when you see a great father is the one that teaches their children how to pick up and go back at it, and to get back up and start again, and to go at it better, or to be more creative about it, but not to just sit down and fold or give up, or to give into anger and a rash emotional decision. But to me, that's where you see a great father, is teaching your kids how to make good decisions.
Right?
This is real touchy for me because my children are everything to me.
Mhm.
Fatherhood for me, it's everything. It's being able to go from, I have 5 children. I have 2 boys and 3 girls, and to be able to go from being able to have them in your arms to letting them go into a marriage, having them you read their first word, and then being able to hear them give you their whole report in high school, have them go from being on a tricycle to being able to have the experience to help them parallel park. It's just the experience for me. Fatherhood is critical for me, because for my kids, I always want them to be better than me. That's what it means to me. It means I want them to be able to learn what I learned, understand that their dad is not perfect, and also understand that you don't have to ever compare yourself to anybody else. I always use this thing where I, like, when the kids get 18, I say I got three grown and 2 still home. And just the beauty, I was thinking about this the other day. I was on a walk and I was saying I was so proud of my children. And I'm so proud of them because of the fact that they are like Brother Garcia was said, the things that you teach them when they're younger, to now be able to wait until they get older. And now I just kind of push play on the DVD player and now watch them live out everything that you taught them, and see how and ask them questions and see how they ebb and flow. And also a lot of the things that you think they're not listening to have them bring that back to a lot of the things lessons I've taught or things I've shared, they've actually brought it back to me, and to say, man, they were listening. And to see them to be successful and to push through challenges, and to be able to get that phone call to say, Dad, of course, when they get older, you get less and less phone calls, but when you do get the phone call, it is significant. It is at a critical point. It's at a defining moment where they need to be able to hear from them, Dad. And that's crucial for me. And I got one that just started high school, and one's about to come out of high school. And all the things that I talk about, their character, the AB honor roll that I always told them that I wanted them to be on. I wanted them to get A's, but I didn't get all A's. I can't front like I got all A's. I wanted them to be on the AB honor roll of attitude and behavior. That was the attitude, that was the AB honor roll that was most important to me, because no matter how smart you were, and what or how, maybe you weren't as smart as everybody else, if you have the right attitude, that is everything to me. And to be able to see them live that out, and then starting to work towards what they're good at, their goals and their purpose, it makes me feel a life of not success, but significance, because I know that my legacy is going to be secured because of what I poured into them, and then what they are starting to pour back out. So I know that when, at the end of the day, like you said, we're not going to be around, I know that my kids are going to be all right. And I know I did the best job possible. And I knew that they are going to be better than me, because that's my main goal. Be better than your dad. As great as you say I am, I hope they say I'm great, but I want them to be better than me, because at least I know that the next generation from there will just catapult them, and and all the future generations to come, because of the blueprint that I gave them, the foundation.
Mr. Grant?
Yes. For me, this is it's kind of very, very touching for me, and generally, I think that from the culture from which I come from and the part of the world where I was born and what I have turned out to be. And I know there are many out there similarly to myself who really grew up with not having a father as a model to follow, but yet and still where you just groom yourself to become a father to those who the good Lord allowed to come through you. Right now, we are empty nester. My our youngest daughter graduated from George Mason University, and she in a degree in forensic science and law. And she's very much on her own, and all five of the kids are basically on their own. The joy that it brings to me most is that it's not that the training or so that we gave to the children when they were growing up, but the acceptance of the training that we gave them. Because if they did not accept what we were trying to impact them, they won't turn out to be who they are today. So that's what brings much more of a joy to say that, oh my God, look at these young people. Then they can come back to you and say, oh, thank you, Dad, for what you did do. I did not understand it at the time, but now I can grasp it, I can comprehend it. And you see them being molded the way that you thought that you were trying to do, doing the very best for them. But all in all, what I find is that it was not for mothers. It was not for mothers. Many of us who are real men today won't be who we are. And for our generation now to take that lead and say, what might have happened? The buck stops here. I'm going to be not just a father, but I'm going to be a dad to these who God allowed me to. I'm going to mold them. I'm going to put something into them that tomorrow I can be very, very proud of. So it's really a joy to see someone from birth to young adulthood and carry our thanks. Many times churches have a father of the year, this, that, whatever the case may be. But the best father of the year are the children that walk after for what they have represented you to be. That's the joy that it brings to me.
All right, so we're about to close out the program. So I'm going to give each of you gentlemen to opportunity to share with the audience your businesses, and if people want to contact you, whether it be your email, your phone number, your website, how can they contact you? So let's start with Mr. Grant.
Okay, I'm Thomas Nan Grant, which is TSG, and TSG means Thomas Nan Grant. It also means through His grace. It also stands for treat Him good. You can contact me at thomas@gpnsolution.com. You can also reach me at 302-290-5178. I'm all about collaborating between my brothers and sisters here within the United States and what as we classify as the motherland. Many times there's milk and honey there. But for us to get the milk and honey, we have to nurture the milk and honey so that it can taste good. And as people normally say, you take a lemon and make it into lemonade. I said, well, you don't just take lemon and make it into lemonade, change the flavor of it also. So if we can collaborate, we can do some great things between here, the United States, and many different African countries. There's also a 200 bicentennial that is coming up next year in Liberia from Providence Baptist Church. And Providence Baptist Church is the very first church in the Republic of Liberia that was founded by Lakere, who was from Virginia, whereby in the United States right now you have in the Baptist Convention, you have the Lakere Convention, and that's where they're all from. So I will also, if we can reach out to one another and to extend the invitation for a visit to Liberia, the first independent African country that was modeled after the United States, and see how we can do some collaboration there in bringing more awareness and bringing some good things to the motherland. Thank you.
All right, Fred?
Hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. So my name is Fred Fitsgiles, and you can reach me at my website. I feel kind of the early Christmas spirit, so I'm going to be giving out a free book tonight. It's called Self Mastery. It's an ebook. You can just go to www.itstimetolead. That's it's time, the number 2 lead.com. You jump on my mailing list, you're going to get a free book. And if you are a company or a business or you're an individual who wants to be able, who's open about growth and want to be intentional about developing a positive mindset, being able to help with your attitude, negative thoughts, building your confidence and character and how to deal with failure, then I am doing a mastermind training. And for the first 10 people that join my mailing list, if you're a company, an organization, a church, you will be getting that book for free. And you'll also be able to join my virtual class for free starting in November. So I'm in the Christmas spirit tonight. It's typically a class that costs $1,000, but I'm looking for 10 people who are serious about moving the needle in their life, being able to change their mindset. If they're a professional and they didn't get that, you didn't get that promotion because of your attitude and things of that nature, need help. I have a safe, non-judgmental training environment we do online, and I'm offering that to you just because, Omar, you have blessed me in so many ways, and I want to be able to bless you so as well. So again, and then I also send out weekly emails on that list as well. So you'll be giving me permission to send you not spam, but great emails of articles that's going to help you to be able to develop to the person where you want to be, especially if you're stuck. My goal is to be able to help you to impact in a way that you never go back to the way you were before you met me. All right. So it's itstimetolead.com, www.itstimetolead.com. You click on there and then you'll be able to, get in contact with me as well. And I'm looking forward to being able to help to transform your life.
All right, Tony.
First, I'd like to say thank you, Omar, for inviting me. That's
No problem.
first. I appreciate that. It's great to see you. It's great to meet all of you. All of you have a lot of wisdom that I will steal from you.
Yes,
and
sir.
use to impose to help others.
Amen.
My name is Tony Garcia. I'm of the firm Bates and Garcia in Baltimore. We do criminal, we do personal injury, and we do some sort of medical malpractice at times. We are a firm. We started out with just one person, and now we're up to like 11 people. We work pretty hard. We travel all over the state of Maryland, representing persons, whether that are in all sorts of situations, but mostly criminal, real estate, or personal injury. My email address is Tony, Tony, at BatesGarcia.com. And that's Tony, Tony, at BatesGarcia.com. Please reach out to me if you ever need anything, and I'm here. Occasionally I come back and help our friends of mine from Wilmington. I have a lot of friends in Wilmington, family in Wilmington, and so I am around. I may not be able to go to court in Wilmington, but I can definitely help. Thank you.
All right, those who are watching, please follow, like, and subscribe. Thank you for tuning in to this special edition of A Conversation with Men of Color, episode 7. Episode 8 will be next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Check my timeline out. And also this Thursday, October 22nd, 7 p.m. Check my timeline out. We're going to be talking about domestic violence. Gentlemen, thank you, all of you for coming on. You guys are the best.
Omar, you rock, man. I appreciate
Thank
you,
you, sir.
Tony, and Mr. Garcia and Mr. Grant. I thank you so much, Omar. I appreciate you guys. You guys are great. This was awesome.
Okay, guys. Okay,
Thanks
guys.
a lot.
All right, God bless. Thank
God
you.
bless.
Care.
All right.
Man.